Welcome to the Find Your Exit podcast. We're the leading authority on buying, selling, fixing, and growing companies. Michelle Seiler Tucker is dedicated to helping you find the path to retire rich and move on to your next adventure by exiting your business for the desired dream price you deserve. Get ready to find your exit with your host, Michelle Seiler Tucker.
Welcome to another episode of Find Your Exit. I'm so excited to have a good friend of mine and a fascinating businesswoman, Loral Langemeier, to the show. She is a money expert, sought-after speaker, entrepreneurial, thought leader, and best-selling author of 5 books. She is the CEO and founder of Live Out Loud, Inc. The company has served thousands of individuals worldwide and created hundreds of millionaires through wealth-building and educational programs. Loral is a regular guest host on The Circle in Australia and has been featured in articles in USA Today, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, Forbes magazine, and was the breakout star in one of my favorite films, The Secret.
Yep.
She also runs a nonprofit called Serve Out Loud, a program aimed at providing discounted education and financial literacy to the United States veterans. Loral, welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Great to be here. And this most interesting pandemic time, which everybody needs to know about money. And what's cool is it keeps changing every week or month.
It does. Every minute's different. Every day is different. So what's been changing in your life?
A ton. I mean, so, when this pandemic hit, I was telling you right before the show, I was planning on a very different transition. And that's not what happened. I mean, one of my mentors said, my organization is me and about 28 other financial experts. And we have never been this active with clients and helping sort out whether their businesses should open back up, doing financial and business strategy, just business after business, from chiropractors to hair salons to, and then some of the stuff, our teams have been buying. Like we just picked up a Ford dealership for $500,000 in Texas, picked up, actually at the Raider fan base, which is kind of cool. I mean, there's just been so many deals, and I think it's the coolest time. So I love that we're talking about exits when I think this is a time of huge entrance. I think there's going to be so much on sale, and there is. And I've never been more active helping people decide what to do with their companies and their exits. It'll actually be interesting. This is going to be an interesting conversation, because a lot of times right now, their exit is partner as fast as you can because you don't have the cash to stay alive.
That's actually correct. A lot of industries that were dying before COVID are now thriving. And then the industries that were doing really well and on top are now dying. So yeah. It's imperative to pivot. Like you said, you were changing directions and you kind of went back and are now pivoting again, so you can provide your financial expertise to the yeah. role, because so many people need it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you get started in your wonderful entrepreneurial career?
How did I get started? It's so interesting because I think there's so many people that work with me and on the teams, and I think they think there's this big master plan that just happened, and really I just kept moving forward. And I think so many people that are listening don't move forward enough. One of my books I wrote, I have 5 New York Times bestsellers. The Millionaire Makers are a big cornerstone book, but I wrote the Yes Energy book, and I just kept saying yes and figuring it out and getting the teams together. And, like you living in New Orleans, that was probably one of my biggest Yes Energy moments. So I grew up in a farm in Nebraska, no money conversation, which is, typical of most people. And then got the book Think and Grow Rich when I was 17, which was a defining moment. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, these people, like this book is like how I think. And then I just committed to my life to studying how do people become millionaires, mm-hmm. and why so few people actually nail it. And we're taught so improperly about money. And so I just committed to my career of studying money. I took a little trajectory, which is what got me to New Orleans. And I have a master's in exercise physiology. So I took my finance and exercise physiology degree, and I was, I'll never forget. I mean, I got a massive contract with Chevron and was flying around offshore. And they said, I was 24 years old, and they said, so can you do this? Can you build 297 or 92 fitness centers on offshore oil rigs? And I remember with these hard hat and goggles on going, Oh, absolutely. Thinking, oh shit, I have no idea how to do this. And then that's really, I just kept taking steps forward. 1996, I met Robert Kiyosaki, Sharon Lechter. Sharon's still like I call her my financial mom. And, I'll never forget leaving Chevron. Huge contract. Was at headquarters in San Francisco. And I remember leaving, and the other people in the business, in Chevron were going, what are you doing? You're going to follow this Japanese guy in a game around? Are you freaking crazy? And I think there's just so many lessons in all of that. Like, I just kept saying yes to the things that felt right. I knew money would always follow. And it has. And then in 2000, I went on my own and been doing this ever since. Wow. So I built a huge financial team. We do business and financial strategies for tons and tons of individuals, families, and companies. And it's been fun. And,
well, you and I have that in common, because I used to work for corporate America too. I worked for Xerox, and I was a regional manager over 80 people in the South, 80 salespeople, 80 unruly salespeople.
Yeah.
And I left Xerox and went into partnership with a franchise corporation, and everybody thought I was crazy. They're like, Michelle, you're leaving 6 figures, great benefits.
Yeah. Same thing. Yeah.
In a franchise organization that has sold 2 franchises.
Yep. Same thing.
I made more money with that, doing my own thing in 6 months than I made an entire year for Xerox.
Yep. I made more in my first few months, and then was making what I was making at Chevron by like my second, third year. I was making what I made in a year and a week.
Wow.
So, Bob Proctor has been a great mentor as well. And he said, when your annual income becomes your monthly income, and I take that down to like your weekly and daily, because some people have no idea. They think $50,000 or $60,000 as a job is like a damn good deal. I'm like, you can do that in a weekend if you really get to it.
Right.
And you understand how to be an entrepreneur. It's just, we're not taught to be entrepreneurs. So I love your exit, idea, because most people become entrepreneurs, they stumble into it. And quite frankly, I let a lot of people stumble into it because it's just easier than planning an exit. Most times when people walk into being an entrepreneur is they just want to replace their job. Right. And that's kind of their psychology. I just need to get the hell out of my job, and I need 50, 60, 100, $200,000 as an entrepreneur. Then once they're in actually a sustainable entrepreneur, then I talk about the exit, because most of them can't even get their head around being an entrepreneur and selling. The biggest, obstacle is marketing and sales. They have no idea how to get the lead, no idea how to get the customer. And once they can do that, then it's like, all right, what do you want to do with this thing?
Right. That's why Exit Rich is so huge, because, even before COVID, 70%, most business owners don't know this, but 70% of businesses were dropping like flies after being in business for 10 years.
Yep.
10 years. So many of these business owners are selling for pennies on a dollar or closing their business. That's why Sharon Lechter and I decided to write this book together, so we can help more and more business owners, so they don't just lose their business, but they're losing their family assets too. So.
Well, and I think so many people, like right now, a lot of the strategies, I'll say, like whether it's their home, which, some of the real estate investors are like, what are you doing? I said, if there's families that are losing their home because they can't afford their mortgage, put the home in an LLC, find somebody who's got $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, you partner into an LLC, they save their home, you now have a new investment, but do the same thing, whether it's the auto body shop, it's your hair salon, it's your nail salon, everything's on sale. Like this whole thing I've been calling an indiscriminate crash, because you can make money in any category, and you can take an exit, you can enter, but what it is for the person you're helping financially, it's their exit, or it's their transition to a new entity that now has new shareholders. And there's so much of that going on in the smarter parts of the world, while everybody's worried about this drama and chaos that's going on, around us. I mean, there's so many businesses. I think, what I love, Michelle, is I always talk about when I'm on stage, when I used to be on stage, this is my new stage now.
This is our new stage. You and I met.
Our new stage. And I'm not going to leave this stage. I have no interest. I sold my plane. I have no interest in running around the world. I did all that with my kids. We've been on every continent. We've trained everywhere in the world, which also sort of planning for this moment, because I have clients now in this COVID, because when is the world shut down, that need money help. And I think your money needs to be in more places in the world. But it's been so interesting, this whole transition and the amount of people, like one of the biggest conversations I always, I start my talks with is how many do you, if you had the knowledge, the resources and the money, right? Knowledge, resources, money, would be a shark on Shark Tank. Like, not like you want to take the seat on TV. I had an opportunity to do that. You don't want to, you don't get paid a lot of money. And the deals honestly aren't that great. I'd rather just do them in real life. So, but a lot of people say, I'd love to be a shark. I said, this is your time. You like right now, everything's on sale, from your hobby shop, cannabis. I'm in Nevada, so cannabis is a massive business here. In fact, cannabis is topping alcohol use in this state. Cryptocurrencies are leveling out, digital currencies leveling out. There's just, what do you want to buy? It's sort of like, what do you want to buy in an entrance? And what you need to look for are the people who have no clue how to exit. Like, I think we're in this most rich time. And I don't know about you, Michelle, but I think we're going to be here for at least till next summer. Maybe spring we'll start seeing something different, but I think we have a huge opportunity to buy a lot of stuff right now.
I think so too. I think, there were more millionaires made out of the Great Depression than ever before.
Yep.
And I think you're going to have more out of this pandemic than the Great Depression. So opportunities are all around us. People just have to take massive action and don't get paralyzed by fear.
Well, in right action, I think so many people don't know, so like live out loud has been the premise and the theme of my, business and life forever. Because I always say you want to live out loud about money. And the more you talk about money and are in conversations about money, the more you're going to learn. And the more, like, I can literally within 5 minutes hear someone's conversation and know where they are with money. So people who say that there's no money right now, the money is everywhere right now. It is everywhere. And a huge pool of money that most people don't know how to access or then use is in IRAs. Think of all the people that are laid off and still are not going back to work. And they had big jobs. I mean, I have tons of pilot clients, tons of pilots. I have lawyers who have no idea how to get online and do this. I have, you name it. I mean, there's not a category we're not working in, but so many of them have huge 401ks. Yeah. And if you self-directed 401k, you can use that capital to help fund this new acquisition. And there's so many that are available and necessary.
And that's without paying taxes and penalties.
Exactly. Exactly. And so people say there's no money. I'm like,
most people don't even know that.
Oh, I know.
They don't even know that program exists.
The money's everywhere right now. You just got to go, find it, pick it up, and do the deal right. And I think that's where people like you and I, Sharon, some of the folks you said you've been talking to, we just know how to cut the deals. We know how the deal can be structured. We have good, tax teams, legal teams, people who help put all that together. And, I think it's the greatest time. One of the things I'm calling this, Michelle, I'm calling it the COVID coma, because I think so many people are in a coma, sitting around watching every Netflix original on the planet, and just, they're not engaging. It's like, you need to get to the playing field. It's going to be the richest time of our life.
And especially for the business owners that have businesses, if they're not focused on their business and how to pivot and what they should be doing differently and innovating and then marketing, they're going to lose out on their business.
Yep.
So you've been doing this for decades. What is the number one issue that you've seen with people's association with money and why there are not more millionaires?
Well, and I have this cool grid, that I could show folks, but I'll kind of just vision it, is what we're taught is since 1933 is, when the industrial age, came about, the school systems did, the pharmas did, right? All of this that we're now in the middle of this, systems, issues, whatever it is, but we were taught to be employees. And at the root of every continent that I have traveled to, we're taught to go to school, get a good job, which I'm a huge fan of school. I have a master's degree. My son's going to go on and get a master's degree. He's in the middle of a massive education right now. So it's not about not going to school, but he's going to school to go bring home a bunch of entrepreneurs that are going to work on all the stuff that we got going on. So
I love it.
Very, very different. I mean, he's going to find his CEOs and CFOs and marketing experts. And, he's finding his teammates right now while he's playing football and having a damn good time. But I think, we're so entrenched in, or the only way that, you're going to make money is a job. And if you need more money, get another job. Like, there isn't a real driving education for being an entrepreneur. So most people have it all tangled up, and they think that they can just jump from being an entrepreneur to an employee to an entrepreneur, and you can't. Like, You know, it'd be really fun for you, Sharon, and like Forbes Riley, like a bunch of us women that are millionaires like to do, would be to like, I think one of the funnest, maybe we just do it on YouTube because I really don't want to go run around and do TV officially, is can you imagine an executive and an entrepreneur, like a swap, trading places?
Oh, that would be that's an awesome idea. Like wife swap.
It would be like wife swap, but it'd be the
Yeah.
entrepreneur and executive.
I
The
love
problem is that the entrepreneur would get back a very, very broken business, probably, unless they're a good manager. And the entrepreneur probably can't live inside the confines of the corporation. So even though entrepreneurs live in corporate structures, I teach corporate life, it's not the corporate life that we're trained. Like my son's getting a finance and accounting degree. And I remember the first time he, went to school, he's texting me from class going, "Oh my God, Mom, they're teaching us to be employees here." I said, "I know." He said, "So everything I've learned," like he was 18, he got his first LLC, right? He said, "Everything you've taught me, there's not a class that I will take." And he's at like the Harvard of the South. I want to say where he's in Florida, Georgia, right? And they won't teach him how to be an entrepreneur. They're going to teach him how to like be a finance manager for a corporation, an accounting manager for a corporation. He's not learning to be an entrepreneur. So unless you come out here like with people like us, you don't know that this world exists. And most entrepreneurs become millionaires very quickly because they make money. And then because we're in the making money and we're in the depths of a business, we know how to invest, right? They go together. So we make it and we invest, we make it and we invest. And all of a sudden, years later, you own a variety of things. And whether that's real estate or other companies, entrepreneurs make the world move, which is what's so frustrating about what's going on with, the undercurrent of the politics that are going on. Because small businesses are like, we have to survive. Small and medium-sized business makes this world work. And
there's 30.2 million small businesses that employs over half of the U.S. workforce. If you kill small business, you kill jobs.
Exactly.
You kill the economy.
Yep. And, there's a section of our world that's trying to do that really aggressively to us right now.
Absolutely.
We're fighting back like crazy. So I think you said, what the question was, what's the biggest problem is most people are not taught to be really good entrepreneurs and then wealth builders, right? Corporate structure. How do you do banking? Like, how does it really work? And I think there's so many people. That's why I actually, really did the work that I do for people the way I do it. It's very practical. I don't teach in theory. We take people like next week, we're going to Boise, Idaho, fastest demand growing market in the country. Wow. Because California, I call it the communist Californians, they're moving in droves. They're moving to Boise, they're moving to Reno, our area, they're moving to Vegas, and they're moving to Scottsdale.
And
Texas. They are moving to Texas. They're having a mass exodus of anybody who wants to continue to be a capitalist and run a business and have, the way this country is built. So I just think we're taught poorly. And unless people really get introduced to it, I think people just keep plugging on and having their job.
Yep. I agree 1,000%. I don't think that it's taught in schools. There's only one university that I know that teaches entrepreneurship, and that's High Point University with Dr. Nito Cobain.
Yep.
You probably met him. You've probably heard of him.
Yep.
So I know you've grown millionaires around the world. What kind of success have you had? So let's say you have a class of 100 people. How many of them do you think will become millionaires? I'm just curious.
Typical percents, unfortunately. I think we have a little bit better success rate because, so I'd say those who really do the work, 20, 30%. Like our promise in the Millionaire Maker book is 3 to 5 years. But there's a lot of people just because of how they grew up or whatever, their family. It's interesting how your family's lineage and lifestyle and even like how you handle debt, how you handle like all of it is so ingrained from your family. It's so inherited. And so grew up in a farm in Nebraska. When I left for New Orleans in 1991, I never looked back, but I left at 17 and never looked back. Like I knew I was not going to live that life. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do, but I wasn't going to be that. I wasn't going to be, a farm wife. But not that it was a bad life. That was cool. I did that thing. I go back there. It's fun. My family still runs, 5-6 generation farm ranch. It's not my thing. I just wasn't going to do that. So I think so many people don't just decide like, what are my rules? From even rituals. Like they just don't say, who am I going to be? Who is my family going to be? And design their life that way. They just kind of go along and get along. And, you know, I don't think a lot of people just take total ownership. So here's what I can say to the 100 people. If you do everything we say, everything, and I don't care if you're freaking homeless. I don't care if you're a single parent with 5 kids. I have made homeless people billionaires. I've had some B's in my life too. And if you are willing to do the work and really understand the action, and I'll say work like work, roll up your sleeves. It's thinking. Like there's a thinking to it. There's a leadership to it. There's a posture to it that so many people aren't willing to cross the chasm. And but I think, I mean, give me anybody. That's kind of what was my premise with Dr. Phil. Give me anybody and I'll make them a millionaire, but they have to do the work. You know, there's a few people like Dr. Phil, like I'll never forget a couple in Atlanta. I flew out to Atlanta, you know, did a makeover in the family. We came up with a plan and they're like, yeah, we'll do the work. Well, the next week we're out coaching and like 5 o'clock they came home from their job. I said, eventually you're going to quit your job, be an entrepreneur, but during the nights and during the weekends, you have to go market. Yeah, I've already cracked a beer, you know, God, I had a bad day. I'm like, you don't get to have a fucking bad day. You're
going to have a bad life.
What your day looked like. I mean, I remember calling Dr. Phil's executives going, man, these people won't work. They're so lazy. And there's an inherent laziness of, you got to really want it. You got to want it, not for the money. You got to want it for a bigger goal. Like, what do I do all this for? Yes, my kids are going to have a fabulous legacy left to them. But you know what? I do it because I love helping people and I love the light bulb moment. I love living this lifestyle. I love helping people do it. So it's a mission beyond yourself. Like your program's a mission beyond yourself.
Right.
You know, you don't have to do this. And I think until somebody decides they want something bigger and to really affect people's lives, they just go in their day in and out and in and out and in and out. And they don't get it. You're not going to get there that way. This isn't a lottery ticket.
Right. And you have a bad day. Guess what? By cracking open that beer and not doing the work, you're going to have a bad life. And it always puzzles me how, like you could take a family, even my family, for instance, and I have, brothers, 3 brothers. I'm the most successful out of them. You know, the rest of them went and got a job and I'm the most successful. Why? And I look at different families and I'm like, okay, 6 siblings here. One's very successful. They all had the same upbringing. They all had the same parents. The rest of them are not. What makes that one person different than everybody else?
Well, one thing I would say about a lot of this, and I'm actually, you know, I could go off on the school systems and what they're doing, which I think is ridiculous. But, you know, I learned early on, and, you know, your environment is more powerful than anything else you put in your life. You can have, you know, you and I can call each other and we can have a little chat every morning and be accountability buddies. But until you're in the environment of living and being and seeing how millionaires live, like there's nothing faster. If you want to be a millionaire, you have to hang out with us. And I'm not talking hang out just on Zooms. You need to get to Boise, Idaho next week. You need to get to Kansas City. We're doing an apartment tour then, right? Because apartments are going to be on sale. We're buying a ton of, you know, great stuff. You have to be in it. You have to see how we live, how we spend, how we go out for dinners. I mean, you know, it just, all of it's so different. How we live, how we make financial decisions. I mean, like, you know, getting on an aircraft, right? Buying a $3 million aircraft. I didn't even blink at it in 2007. I just bought it, right? Because I knew my time was so valuable and I knew how I could monetize it. Right. It wasn't like oh my gosh, this is a big expense. Right. And then you start being around people, like how I learned a lot about deals, you know, entrances and exits in businesses was being around the people who do it. Like right now, I've been asked to be on a massive international team and it's going to be a huge private aviation roll up and buyout. And I got a big board seat. Why? Because I have the experience. Right. So I think, you know, like you said, how does 1 out of 6 make it? I think you chose an environment and you surrounded yourself with the right people at a different, and it is a different energy and it's a different, you know, behavior. Like what we do is so different than what normal people do. It doesn't even occur to me to do what they do.
And I think it's having a higher level of standard. You know, I had a higher level of standard than my brothers. Yep. I wanted more.
Yep. And here's what's interesting too. I'm glad you brought that up, Michelle, because I think when other women hear that, it's sort of like, oh yeah, she's a bitch. You know what? Men are powerful when they do what we do. So why are women, you know, we're not bitches. We expect a lot. And I expect a lot of my kids. Like, you know, how I raise my kids versus and my kids know it. My kids know because they've gone to other people's houses and they're like, like, like I remember my daughter, coming home going, thank you, Mom, for doing what you're doing. Like, there's moments where they're kind of complaining about, the single life and being drug around the world and doing all this stuff. And now later they're like, oh my God, thank God you made us do all that. Because I couldn't imagine having nobody championing, no one having high expectations for you, saying you will do this, this is how our life's going to be. And this is how you're going to be treated. Like, it's so different, the environment of millionaires than, I'm just going to say, the average person. Like, this whole environment going on right now where somebody would rather sit on their ass and get an extra $600 and live on unemployment than be purposeful. And I didn't say work, I said be purposeful, do something to contribute versus take. There's just so much taking energy that is going, like, it's the divide. This divide also, when the world shut down, like, first of all, the middle class is sort of a interesting little place that everybody plays, but the rich have been rich and the poor have been poor, and it's designed that way. So until you decide to raise your hand and say, I'm not going to live like this anymore, and I'm going to have something different. Mm-hmm. And for some of you physically, I doubt your broadcast is like, has those people on, but they have to literally physically pick up and move. I don't think you can say, look at New Orleans. I don't know, were you there during the big flood?
I was. During Katrina?
Yeah, during Katrina. Yep.
Katrina, I was. Yep.
It was an interesting little purge, wasn't it?
It was an interesting little purge, and that's why I always say you need to diversify. You need to have multiple different businesses. You need to have businesses in different states. You need to have your money in different places. Just like you said, have your money in other countries. You have to diversify. And that's why I was able to survive Katrina, is because I was diversified, and I am diversified.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So tell us about your 5 books. I knew you wrote 5 books, but I had no idea that all 5 were New York Times bestseller.
I got some interesting creds. I don't know that there's very many people. Even most of the gurus people know don't have 5 New York Times. They have books, but they weren't New York Times.
Well, I'm hoping this one will be a New York Times bestseller, Exit Rich.
Yeah. It's a challenge to get them. So I actually have 52 books. I have one coming out right now as we speak, Make Your Kids Millionaires. And I'm writing that with a partner who's an Air Force fighter pilot, now retired Lieutenant Colonel. And he, in a very different way, made his kids millionaires. He became a client of mine. And we both had millionaire kids, but so different. And I said, it'd be fun, now that I've done the Millionaire Maker series, is to do a book on how I did it and how he did it. So he's a very, kind of normal 2.2 kids in the white picket fence, family. I did travel around the world as an Air Force fighter pilot, led squadrons of, into war and battle. So it's an interesting spectrum of how you can live your life to become a millionaire. But again, the same things we're talking about. You surround yourself with the right people, you put yourself in the right situations, you got to have a bigger goal, all that. But my books, how the books came about was I was actually kind of asked, I was very asked to do it. I wanted to do my first book, that was in 2003 and 4 with J. Conrad Levinson, was Guerrilla Wealth. So I was the only guerrilla author in Jay's day who wasn't a marketing expert. And so, and the way I got him to do my book on wealth was I told him I'd make him more money doing a book with me than anybody else, because that's what I do, help people make money. And then the minute it was published, literally within, 30, 60 days, McGraw-Hill called me and said, we've been watching you, you make millionaires, you've been a millionaire now for over 5 years. 99 was my millionaire year. And so 2005, they approached me and gave me a massive retainer to do a 3-book series. So we went from The Millionaire Maker to then how to build a 6-7 figure business called The Cash Machine, to then how do you invest like a millionaire wealth cycle. So 3 years, 3 books, all hit the New York Times. 2 organically, 1 was a little bit more work. Because honestly, the investing book, the alternative asset investing book, a lot of people are like, she's way out, like gas and oil and just complete alternatives. And so that one's still my favorite book. And then I waited a few years, and then HarperCollins picked me up again, called me and said, do you want to write another book? 2009, we're in a crisis. People need to know about money. So I wrote Put More Cash in Your Pocket, this little fun book right here. Anybody watching the broadcast, we can give this away for free. This is the most pivotal book in like today's time right now, how to put more cash in your pocket, how to make it. And then I wrote the Yes Energy book because I want to be a Hay House author. So I actually approached them and said, I got this whole lineup of books. I want to write a book and be on the God Squad with Wayne Dyer and everybody, and did a Hay House book, but all of them bestsellers.
Wonderful. That's great news. Thank you so much for giving us a testimony on Exit Rich.
Yeah, awesome.
We need to work together on helping businesses exit.
We do. Well, I want to get them in. This is how we work together. I want to get them in and get them successful, and then you take them out.
I'll take them out. You bring them in, I'll take them out.
Exactly
And then
right.
we need to get the women together, the powerful women together. I love your idea.
I know.
Trading places. So,
Well, so few people do it, that especially women, so few people create the desire to now become millionaires. But I say, if you're a mom, I mean, you have such influence on helping those children of yours, and it is your responsibility.
Right.
Schools aren't going to do a damn thing about it.
and I am a mom. I have a 9-year-old. So my next
wow,
question,
awesome.
what's that?
That's awesome.
Thank you. So my next question, yeah, I always say she's more complicated than any deal I've ever done. But my next question is, what's your biggest advice to parents on how to teach your kids to be entrepreneurs?
Well, I have this brand new
How to
book
teach
coming
them
out.
about money. Yeah, I love
Yes,
that.
brand new book coming out. So the biggest advice though is you start, like I started planning before they were even born. I mean, when they come, I mean, they work for your company. If you really stage it right, they work for your company. You have Roth IRAs. You get them very involved in the money conversation. You bring them to my workshops. Like we're doing just a how do you kids version of this coming up soon. How do you put more cash in your pocket? Your languaging patterns early on. You never say, you know, don't ask for it. You can't afford it. You say, how can we afford it? What are we going to do? You include them. Right. You take them to the bank. You get them accounts early. You get them debit cards and credit cards early. I'm talking 13, 14, 15. They learn money early under your command.
So is that the age you should start, is around 13? Because I have a 9-year-old and I'm starting with her. I started with her when she was 7.
Yep.
Talking to her about money.
Well, I start when they're really, really, really young, just with the, because we were traveling all over the world. I mean, my daughter's for her 7th birthday, we went around the world. And we picked up money across the world, and we would just always be talking about it and how it's different, and currencies and exchanges. And so it was always around, as far as saying, here's a debit card, here's how you use it. In this day and age, though, you could start as early as 9, 10. I mean, mine are past that. At 10 years old, I start a car account. And between 10 and 16, whatever they put away, I match up to 20 grand. I don't think any 16-year-old, statistically, they'll wreck it anyway. So nothing more than 20 grand. And then they can, you know, we'll go on to the next vehicle. But I teach insurance. I teach digital currency. I mean, right now, like we had so much fun with the teens in our community when the market crashed in, you know, between March 17th and 23rd, and how to pick stocks and why to pick them and how to make a massive run. I mean, some of the stocks were so on sale. It was awesome. It was awesome to just teach the kids. So being in a constant conversation that money's okay. And it is associated to the tasks you do. Like I have one of the kids programs I do too, it's called Never Pay Your Kids an Allowance. Because when you pay an allowance, it's a fixed amount based on what, right? It's like a job. So I have kids, I have a whole program where they design their tasks, they have to negotiate for what that's worth. And then they design their amount of money that they want to make per month. They can increase it every month, they can decrease it, but they get responsible for, you know, mom isn't the money machine. You are the little money machine, and you're going to make it, and we're going to figure it out.
I love that. Is that all going to be in your new book?
Yeah, all of it.
Wonderful. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And I can't wait to send my daughter to your class.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's amazing. So you, as a little girl, I remember reading in your bio that at 9 years old, you know, they always put you all at the kids' table, and you wanted to sit at the adults' table, at the big table. So tell me what Loral Langemeier was like as a little girl.
Very independent, a little thinker. Well, I think I challenged the norms early on. So it was actually 7. And I remember, you know, conversations like, why do we eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Why don't we just eat when we're hungry? Like why was always me. And, you know, why do we do that? Why do we do that? So that was just more instinct. And the adult conversations, I had an aunt that inspired me. She's also a huge part in my books. She traveled all over the world. She became a teacher so she could travel and spoke many languages. And anytime she came back from a trip, I mean, I was just glued to her about the travel around the world, because I'd never even been on a plane. I think I was 16 or 17 before I even was on a plane. Yeah. So no travel. I mean, just, you know, South Dakota, Kansas, Iowa, just, you know, that was kind of where we, you know, hung. And that's just not, I mean, my kids were, I mean, my daughter's first flight at 3 months old was on our private airplane. And my son has become a pilot because of it. He was 7. And so, they didn't know anything but that. Like I'll never forget, it's like when they were a little more conscious, like going through security, it's like, what's this?
Wow. I bet they are thanking you though, because what a life. I mean, what
Cool.
an educational experience. I mean, they got to learn so much more traveling with you around the world than they would ever learn in a school class, in a classroom.
Yep. Yep. And it comes with a lot of, challenges, but I wouldn't do it different. It's been a fun ride for them.
And you did it as a single mom, which is even more powerful.
Yep.
I mean, I can't imagine, because even packing myself, packing and unpacking, packing and unpacking, I can't imagine packing for kids.
Well, you kind of get this bag room and they stay packed. You pretty much don't ever, I think for 10 years, I don't know that we ever fully have unpacked. Gotcha. You just change some stuff out and you go again, and change some stuff out and go again. And then, during my kids' younger years, I mean, the car seats, the strollers, all the gear, it never left the back of the plane. I called it my minivan in the sky.
Right.
We would just get in and go, and then I would teach and travel, and they would hang out, and I bring care with me. So, and I think a lot of people just don't think creatively about what's the solution, and know what you want. Yeah. And I think that's, as we talk about, an exit is know what you want. And I think there's so few people that even know what the possibilities of an exit are. Like, I'm not a fan of a big sale just from the tax strategies. I love multiple year staged, sellouts and transitions with a lot of people. Right. And it, transitions the team safer. There's just a lot of, I prefer that usually over most.
Or if there is a big cash out sale, then it's very important to make sure you have the right team in place to mitigate those tax liabilities and invest in the properties where you can divert those taxes as well. Mm-hmm. But it's all about knowing what you want and focusing on the solution, not the problem. Too many people focus on the problem, not the solution.
Yeah. And one thing I just want to reinforce, I mean, it's probably the thing I've done. I've done it completely wrong, picking some interesting wrong teammates. I mean, people say, what's the best of times and the worst of times is team. Your team can create the best scenarios and situations, and your team can be, complicated as hell and create lawsuits. So, finding the right team and understanding due diligence and how to pick them and how to vet them and how to put together the agreements. I think so many people, especially women, I'm going to pick on us women again, they'll do the girlfriend thing, not the business partner thing. So they don't put their agreements together. They just kind of tag along to whoever's has the merchant service. And I mean, just basic stuff. Yeah. You've got to set it up and you've got to control it, and you got to control the right variables. And you say, well, how do I learn all that? Hang out with us, and say, well, how do I do that? You pay to have a mentor. I mean, that's what I do. People pay to have a mentor. I mean, tonight, for those watching, I mean, we have, what I call a virtual meetup and marketplace. So tonight we have about 175 people coming, and it's only a $97 event, but between now and the weekend, they will be taught to make money. So I don't care what level of entrepreneur, you will learn to make money in a 3 to 5 minute period. Like a fast cash, I call it. I want $10, $20, $50. Like, I'd rather have, 100 people give me $10 than one person give me $100,000. Mm-hmm. Because now I have a database, and now I have a sales funnel, and now I have people that I can continue to grow with. And most people don't understand that basic principle of database building and entrepreneurialism. So I love it. I teach it once a month.
That's your assets. Those people are your assets.
They are your number one asset. Is your database.
Assets. Yep. Yeah, I call it my 6 Ps, and people is number one in my 6 Ps.
Yep.
But and those assets, like the database, I mean, that's the number one value driver of a business.
Yep.
Right in your database. Yep. Great. Yep. So what's the number one tip you have for business owners? You've given so many golden nuggets today. You've dropped them all along the way. What's the number one tip you have?
Number one is to stay in cash. That's why I put this marketplace together. And you have to stay in cash. You've got to constantly be creating new cash and creating different, it's interesting to say this, because I always say have diverse, revenue streams, because some people who are too young as an entrepreneur or too green, then they just become chaotically scattered, right? And nothing's working. So you have to get kind of that one core, I call it cash machine business running. And then you do additive things that add to it not a whole bunch of scatter stuff. Now, you and I, we've been doing this for a long time. So I got all sorts of uncorrelated things intentionally that don't have anything to do with each other, like this international aviation. I mean, we look at building a hangar in Dubai. It has nothing to do with my real estate in Boise or, a Ford dealership, but that's later. I mean, now businesses are because of investments. In the beginning, I think an entrepreneur needs to find your lane and really get that thing, I mean, way past 100 grand. 100 grand. Well, first, here's the other thing I say to new entrepreneurs, because there's so many, you can sit on unemployment, and when the stimulus runs out, your kind of choices could probably become an entrepreneur. Right. And get to cash and get past 100 grand. Don't think about replacing your income. That's not the formula. The formula has never to do, because your employment income is so overly taxed. So if you bring home 4,000, all we really need to replace in cash flow is 4,000. We don't need to replace your $60,000 job, because you aren't making 60. It's all being taxed to pieces anyway. So I don't think a lot of people know how to set an initial goal that's proper. But if you don't get past 100, you live on a bunch of it, and then there's not enough money to hire a team. You can't hire me, you can't hire Michelle, you can't hire a copywriter, you can't hire a web designer, you can't hire social media advertisers. Like, you need some money to hire a team that knows how to run a company with you, because you're not going to go out and do it all yourself. That's probably the biggest failure of entrepreneurs, is they try to do the marketing, the sales, the accounting, the fulfillment, the technology, the HR. They're trying to do everything, and they're horrible at most of them.
Yeah, because it's not their core competencies. They need to they need to do what they're best at, do what you're best at, and delegate the rest and hire above you. I mean,
but you got to make the money to do it. And you guys be crazy when I hear people say, well, I don't have the cash. It's like, well, make it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not difficult. And so that's, when COVID hit, I hadn't done this workshop. It did come out of this 2009 book, this marketplace technology that I made up on how to help people make fast money. And then we did it like 9, 10, 11, 12. And then we kind of dropped off, right? Because then my Yes Energy book came. The economy changed, and I just kind of dropped it off. But once COVID hit, I knew we were going to bring it back. I knew exactly what people needed. They needed to make new money. And I think entrepreneurs need to constantly make money. Like, 6 figures is nice, but go to 7. It'll change your life. Right. Because you can live on and run your company on, say, the first $250,000, invest the rest. Right. You'll be in and out of this thing in 3 to 5 years.
I agree 1,000%. Absolutely. And you made a good comment earlier when you said, don't hire your friend to do don't hire your friends.
No.
And you don't know what you don't know. And I always tell people, you can't afford not to hire the right expert for what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to sell a company, I'm your person. If you want to make cash, Loral Langemeier is your person. But don't go to your friends. It's funny, because we're negotiating a $10 million contract right now, and my seller went to his in-house legal attorney, who's never done M&A before, who's never had anything to do with negotiations, due diligence, etc., and tore up our contracts and didn't know what he was doing. So all of his comments are really, really bad. Yeah, as they're coming from a place of ignorance, because he's never worked on it before. So you have to hire the best, and like Loral said, you have to make the money so you can hire the best.
Yep.
Great. So I want to ask you one more question. The other book that you keep talking about, the Yes book.
Yep.
Tell our listeners real quick about your Yes book. Because I'm all about yes. I'm all about the power of yes.
Yeah. So it's called Yes Energy. Yes, and the theme is, say yes and figure it out. And the real, more mature process of that is say yes and figure out who knows how. Like, I don't know how to run a Ford dealership, but I'm going to get some equity because I know how to put the deal together, and I know how to teach, people how to raise capital. So say yes and figure it out is really an attitude about how to live your life. So I write a formula on how to have yes energy in your life. So it's a very clear formula, and it takes about a week, 10 days to kind of really go through it and put your own formula together. And here's what I tell people. You have yes opportunities every day. Like, your whole community right now, guaranteed, if you got your head out of your computer and out of Netflix and Hulu or whatever you're doing, and drive down the road and walk into businesses and say, so how are you doing? And they're going to say whatever they're going to say. And then say, how are you doing financially? It's going to change the conversation. Mm-hmm. And then I go the next question, which is, are you going to make it through COVID? Are you going to make it? Because we don't even know how long this is going to last. And, there's a whole, regime trying to make this some new normal, which is ridiculous. But you're going to need some cash to make it.
Mhm.
And do you have the resources to do it? Like, I'm very candid. I walk in all the time. I find all sorts of opportunities.
Mhm.
And I'll say I'm a business financial strategist. And if you're listening to this, you can now rely on, Michelle and I to be your team and say, yep, I have a team. And once you know that there's an opportunity, then be quiet, because you don't know now what to say. You could screw it up, and then just email me, call my team. And then we'll help put the deal together and actually decide if it's worth the deal.
Yeah.
Because if they're too broken, I'm not a, like, this isn't a charity thing. I'm picking up great assets with great opportunities and putting the structure together.
Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. I mean, we do the same thing. We don't just sell businesses. I buy businesses. I partner with business owners. I fix, and then I have a build to sell plan within 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. So we do the same thing, but absolutely. Any last words of wisdom?
Just keep saying yes. I mean, yes is everywhere in your life right now. But what happens to most people when an opportunity comes, because you're so occupationally trained, here's what happened. An opportunity comes and you're about to say yes. And then you think, oh, well, I can't do it. You got to stop evaluating a deal against your skill set. You think, can I put the team together? Who do I know in my Rolodex that I could, really architect the deal? And then I can help put it together. And if you don't know how to do it, I didn't know how to do it when I first started. I had mentors. I paid a lot of people. I don't know how much I paid people to teach me how to do what I know today, right? And it wasn't school. Sorry to say, but it won't be learned there. There's very, very few places that you're going to learn it. You just got to come live side by side. Yeah. We take people on tours. We take them out to understand businesses at the real core of where they operate. Mm-hmm. We take them out, to really see the operation. So start saying yes more and start noticing team. And, one of the things I'm going to leave with a funny story, because I love this story. My daughter thinks, she's like, oh my gosh, Mom, would you stop telling it? But when we lived in a different place up in Lake Tahoe on the mountain, I would drive her across to a charter school. And so we had about a 30-minute drive across the lake. And that was kind of our private time and our time. And every once in a while, if I, had an active day, she would be my little assistant, right? And then she would be paid for the task of being my texter while I was, driving. So we'd talk and she would text. And I'll never forget, one day she looked at me, she said, Mommy, what do you do? I said, what do you mean, what do I do? I said, I teach people how to make money. I teach people how to do deals. I teach businesses how to thrive. No, Mommy, what do you do? I said, well, that's what I do. And she said, no, I text and tell everybody what to do. And you just tell them what to do. And then you go skiing. So what do you do? And I said, I thought it was just out of the mouths of babes. It was so cute. I said, I lead. I said, I lead, and I strategically think and strategize. And I tell other people to do what they need to do who have expertise in that lane. And then together the strategy comes together. I said, so too many people do things that shouldn't be doing things, and they need to learn to think. So probably the biggest thing I do as a mentor is get you to think and to behave differently, because you're in this little rut of doing all the shit you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
So according to my daughter,
I love that story. How old was she at the time?
She was in 4th grade. So whatever age that is. She's now in 8th grade. So I have a 13-year-old. So probably 8, 9, probably
my daughter's age.
Yeah. Just like, what are you doing? But it was so interesting. And it really caused me to think, like, I lead and strategize and think, not do a lot of things. Like, I don't do the heavy lifting. I don't need to. And by the way, if you're at a certain place in your life, you don't need to either. But you got to hire damn good people around you.
Yeah, because I always say, if you don't have an assistant, you're the assistant.
You are, right, exactly.
Yeah, so you need to figure out what your core competencies are, figure out what your A game is, and delegate everything else.
Yep. I say strengthen your strengths, hire your weaknesses.
Yep. I say the same thing.
Do not be balanced in your life. That is, Alex Mendozian is a dear friend of mine. He's so funny. He said, if you look at balance is a scale, like one of those old food scales. Balance is stagnation. What you want is to have it all. You just aren't going to have it all at one time. Like, I have a very rich, have it all life, but sometimes, depending on the year, like this year, we aren't traveling. I'm married to a Canadian. I can't even get into their country. So that isn't going to happen today, but that doesn't mean I don't have a rich life doing everything else. So I'd say have everything you want and do it in your time instead of have balance every day. I think that's an insane possibility and not realistic. Because when you're on a project,
there's so much pressure on people. It's not attainable. And it puts so
Yep.
much added pressure. You know, there might be days where I'm working 12 hours a day, but then I might take a Friday off and spend it with my daughter. Right?
Exactly.
You know, entrepreneurship gives us that flexibility to make those decisions, to choose
Yep.
what
Absolutely.
we want to do and when we want to do it.
Yep.
All
So I
right.
want to give people a gift. If, can I give them a website to go to?
Absolutely. I was just about to ask you.
Perfect. I love to go to Ask Loral, AskLoral, spell my name right. I'm the only one in the world that spells it the other way. So it's askloral.com. And I have a copy of this free book. I have a free software that will protect you in market downturns, and a whole bunch of other little goodies out there for people. I think I even have the Don't Pay Your Kids an Allowance program out there. So it's just a whole bunch of gifts that people can go get and start to learn a different way with money.
Wonderful. You have been amazing. Thank you so much for all the
Yep.
golden nuggets you dropped here today. And thanks to our listeners for joining us on another episode of Find Your Exit. This has been Michelle Seiler Tucker with Loral Langemeier. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Find Your Exit podcast. Don't forget to check out Michelle Seiler Tucker's Build to Sell Blueprint books and Exit Rich, along with more blogs, videos, and resources at findyourexit.org. Be sure to connect with Michelle on Facebook or LinkedIn, and stay tuned for her next episode by subscribing in your favorite podcast player.